Yo, what is up, folks? G here, and we finally have it. The full card list for Pioneer Masters is now out. I'll have a link in the description, but we're going to have a look through the card image gallery. This will be something of an impromptu set review. I'm going to go through the cards, where they go, talk about the new archetypes it's bringing to the platform, and then also maybe one or two things that might have been missed. And I might actually start there. Before I do that, I do want to say the set is amazing. There are so many important cards, and I spent actually so much time scouring through deck lists this afternoon, being like, oh, did they miss anything? Is this on here? Is this in here? And most, like 99.9% of the time, the answer is yes, it's in the set, which is awesome. With that being said, before we go through this, I wanted to talk about a couple of cards that aren't in here, just briefly. There's only a few cards that I've picked out here, and these first few are ones that are actively been played last few months. Arishing Cleric, 2 mana 1/3, gains you some life. Like humans, it's a sideboard card, but it's super niche, and honestly, a little forgettable. Would be nice to have on the platform at some point. That's totally fine. Gnarlroot Trapper, Elves. Elves just got a bunch of new stuff. One of the most exciting decks in the format, at least from my perspective. I'm a bit biased. But Gnarlroot Trapper, not on Arena yet, not in the Pioneer Masters, is a nice one for some variations of the Black-Green Elf deck. Goblin Piledriver, another creature type archetype that's kind of got a bunch of bonuses recently with Krenko printed into Pioneer and a few other tools. I did just cover that recently on the channel. Not in there. Again, pretty niche, but this, again, I did pull this out of a deck list. That was had a 5-0 league or a good challenge result. In my opinion, not really necessary for the Goblin deck. But there are times you want to put it in your sideboard, there are times you want to play in the main deck, and there are matchups as well where having the main deck will just win you the game. And so, again, nice to have. Foul Emissary is a bit more niche, but this ties in with the last card that I wanted to talk about that I pulled from a deck list. Foul Emissary is an emerge card, enters the top 4, get a creature, and then when you emerge off of it, you get a 3/2 Eldrazi token, which is pretty innocuous, but the emerge deck is on the fringe of the format, and it's those fringe form of the format decks that might be missing cards. Again, had to do a lot of digging to find stuff that was actually missing, with the exception of this other card, which also fits into the emerge deck, and that is Santa Mabugan. This is a tough one. It's a card that's historically seen some play in Pioneer. You can play it with Eldrazi and stuff, but specifically with Foundations, we saw a massive resurgence of Metalwork Colossus with Leyline Axe. This card's really important. Unfortunately, it was missed out. Probably weren't expecting it to be played loads. And Metalwork Colossus is a tier 1.5, pretty close to tier 1 deck, but only very, very recently, so probably wasn't on the map when they were designing the set. But Santa Mabugan's I think the biggest actual miss here. With all that, those are all kind of fine. Santa Mabugan, really, we would like it on the platform soon. I was hoping it was going to be in one of the Explorer anthologies aeons ago, but hey, that's okay. But I think the concern going forwards is that there are niche cards that exist in Pioneer that aren't on Arena that any new set might get some wild support for. And then all of a sudden it'd be oh, this is a deck out of nowhere. It doesn't happen very often, it really doesn't. But every now and again you do see something like that, and then those will be missing. Hopefully they can get them on in a supplementary product or something. But again, this set has been awesome. So many cards, filling so many holes. They've done a really, really good job with this. And let's actually take a look at the cards. So, roll on down through. Let me just make sure I'm not blocking anything. Arcane Jethul's a really cool card, but not really supporting anything that's currently going on in Pioneer. Maybe more relevant for some of the older formats on Arena. Scrolling on down, Chain to the Rocks, and I will try and be reasonably quick, rather than not have a half hour going through all these slowly. Bit of pattering. Chain to the Rocks, really, really solid removal spell for decks playing Plains and Mountains. Sees play occasionally in red-white aggro decks. There's some red-white control stuff, obviously, with the token stuff that kind of carried over from Standard, and also some enigmatic type stuff as well. Just very, very solid. Carrying on down, Eidolon is a nice one. I think it's a reprint, though it's already on Arena. Elspeth, though, really, really cool. Does crop up occasionally in blue-white control and that kind of thing, but not a massive player in the Pioneer format. Carrying on down, the Fiendslayer Paladin, Obi-Wan Kenobi. I always love this art. Gideon Zendikar Very solid sideboard card out of a lot of aggressive white decks in the format. Doesn't see play in main decks anymore, but that's fine. Hallowed Moonlight, another just incredible sideboard card, versus some of the like creativity decks or anything where you're trying to cheat something into play, is very, very solid. Even like Collected Company type stuff. Moving on down. Keep going. Kythian, and largely the like flip planeswalkers. Kythian and Jace are the only ones that really see much play, and then like Kythian sees a ton of play in humans. Jace sees again pretty fringe play in other spots, but very solid. Linval is another card where I was checking for earlier, where I was like, oh, it's occasionally like a one of target for like enigmatic incarnation and that kind of thing. I was like, oh, is this going to be in here? And I was like, oh, it is. I was kind of pleasantly surprised. It's a nice one. Gains you some life back, gets you an angel, and kind of catches you back up in the game. Pretty neat, pretty neat. Open the armory here. Actually super important for some variations of like the hammer deck. Specifically, the mono white versions, like the cat version, that plays like that plays Caldra and Brimaz. Doesn't have great ways to search your library for hammer, and so this, so you don't have to splash red for the class that lets you to your equipment, is a really big deal. Secure's a cool one. Silence is another kind of niche sideboard card, totally reasonable. Spirit of the Labyrinth, that very, very occasionally crops up, is a cool effect to have on Arena though, especially actually for like older formats like Timeless. We still don't have Aether Vial, but I still have dreams about old D&T stuff. Starfield NX, I believe, is a reprint to the platform, but I'm not 100% sure on that. It's not like an actively played card in Pioneer, but there are archetypes that kind of like niche archetypes that just kind of like fit into, which is sweet. There are going to be a lot of like limited uncommons and commons that I'm just going to skip over. Tragic Arrogance. This is a mythic? Okay. Neat, I guess. Have fond memories of playing this as standard, but not really a great player in Pioneer. I've seen it in sideboards, but pretty niche. Eighth Link, kind of a similar one. Aqueous Form is actually a pretty nice addition for some variations of like the Hexproof deck, and also fits into some other places, but is again kind of like vaguely on the fringe. Things like Biden, obviously Brumbo Cut that's already on here. Chasm Skulker is like a cool build around me-ish card, but doesn't see any play really in the format. Carrying on down. Pressure Tentacles. This is a cool card. Like, you bounce everything and you get an 8/8. Fair enough if you surge it, which like casts as your second spell. I'm still very sad we don't have Engulf to Shore. No, there is a gap down here where it would be. I would like to play extra turns, and Engulf helps that a lot. It is not here, sadly. Days Undoing is awesome. You can do all kinds of like Notion Thief stuff and Shieldra stuff with this. I'm going to definitely be showcasing like the blue-back version of the deck on some point soon. Enter Shore. Hidden Strings, and this is like a big part of Pioneer Masses. The deck that's been missing for the longest time now from Arena, that's like a big part of the Pioneer meta game, is Lotus Field. For better or worse. It's not necessarily going to be a fun experience playing with or against on Arena, but it's important so that you can actually like test Pioneer in theory if you want to. Hidden Strings is like the biggest card for that deck, enabling you to untap 2 Lotus Fields for 2 mana. Really, really, really big. Then I mentioned Jace Finch Prodigy already, but it's like a neat one. There's some other reprints here. Memory Adept, like neat, doesn't really do anything. Master Waves, while it's not actively played, the Merfolk deck in Pioneer is okay. It's kind of again on the kind of like tier 2 to tier 0.5 kind of fringe. Pioneer is one of those ones like Modern's kind of infinite tier 2 decks, not to the same extent as Modern. Obviously the card pool's way bigger, but like if you want to build Merfolk in a way to compete, you can go like 3-1 at your FNM with no problems. Yeah. Further on down, part of the Water Veil. I talked about turns. No Engulf for short. We did get part. I will play some turns, especially with like Mind Splice Apparatus. That's like pretty cool, but not like a super active combo deck in the format. Okay. Quicken does see some like very fringe play in some weird shells, but Retraction Helix here is a big deal. This enables both Jeskai Ascendancy combo with like the Rona stuff and a couple of other different like combo decks in the format. This is a huge card in terms of like putting a new archetype onto Arena with Jeskai Ascendancy combo and associated other kind of variations of that. Yeah, I'll be playing a lot of this in different forms. So the cool stuff here. Stormtide Leviathan, Sphinx's Tutelage, I believe was already on Arena. recently, but I'm not 100% sure on that. Was a really, really cool like combo deck in standard that's not really translated over onto Arena. Maybe at some point it's like pretty good, but there are like good builds of Mill, just not with Sphinx's Tutelage. Temporal Trespass. This is a massive card in terms of, hey, it's a really, it's like a card that fits into quote unquote potentially the best deck in the format in Is It Phoenix, or a deck that's been the best deck in the format for a significant amount of time, or on and off, or always been in the top 2. Even though it's just like a 1 of or occasionally a 2 of, just a huge card, and like changes the directions of some matchups in terms of some of the control stuff as well. Being able to get the combo turn where you like cast and copy Temporal Trespass is pretty big, and does also fit into turns kind of. This is cool for me. Speaking of cool for me though, Tome Scour, Dredge powers up. We finally have our best 1 mana enabler. Nothing else to say about that. Very, very solid. Like faster, type Mage. I talked a bit about Merfolk already. Fringe archetype, but like, they're around if you want to do devotion stuff. Going into black, Behold the Beyond. This was a card that sees significant amount of play in the Lotus Field deck that was unfortunately not reprinted in Shadows of Remastered. Here we see it with new art. Really, really cool. Barblight's like a removal spell that very, very occasionally just crops up. It's one of those things where like you see Barblight, Ultimate Price is another one, which I believe is also in this set. Sorry. Where they just like every now and again they're just like, oh, we're just gonna rotate our removal spell slightly, and sometimes it's like a meta, it's like a meta dependent and that kind of thing. And sometimes we see like local or like low level tournaments like RCQs and that type of thing. It's like specifically attacking for a certain meta. Dark Betrayal, a nice cyber card that occasionally sees play. Splat decks, especially with like demons rising up with support from Dustmourn. Dart Deal, another kind of wheel effect that you can play in that blue-black wheel deck I kind of mentioned with Dazen doing early with like Sheol, Dread, and Ocean Thief. Dark Petition primarily goes into Lotus Field, is a huge card for that deck in terms of being able to tutor and have mana left over to put into something. Really great. And Devour Flesh, I remember if it was on, we have a bunch of edicts now, so it's not really worth playing. There was a point where it was actively played in the format. Gurmag Angler, Erebos, Illness, Lifebane. Like, I have seen Lifebane Zombie crop every now and again, but there's like not really been enough green-white decks recently. With the rise of the green-white company deck as it is now, maybe. And I've been messing around with some zombie stuff, but hey, it's a nice, again, all these things are really cool to have on the platform. They're like double Liliana's, Liliana Heretical Healer, bit too slow really for Pioneer, but hey, neat. Oval Chase Daredevil. I almost said Dragster. I just put together a Depala EDH deck, which is why I'm getting confused. Which actually cut that card. But hey, I'm not gonna say much for Pioneer. There are, you can do some pretty wild on the fringe of the format stuff where you could play this. But for like Asmo type stuff, if they ever get that into Historic or the other older formats, that's a cool one. In fact, I'm sure it's on Arena already. Pay for Truth, Read the Bones, like, yeah, these are around here already. We know those. The DC is a really cool card. Soul Flayer is an awesome one. This is a deck that is like a fan favorite as well. People love this. We also in this set is Chromanticore. And so, yeah, being able to do Soul Flayer combo stuff is very sweet. Stain the Mind is an excellent reprint. I can't remember which core set it was in and whether it's on Arena. I think it was M15, so I think it's pre-Arena. But it's a Convoke kind of extraction effect, which is really good. Tasiga, another sweet addition. This is going to power up the Neoform decks as well. I also mentioned Gurmag Angler before. It's really cool stuff there. Ultimate Price I also mentioned. We're talking about random removal spell swaps around. Whip of Erebos is very sweet. Doesn't really see any active play. Necromancer, Zulapok is obviously on the platform already. Necromancer does see a bit of play on the form. Play from time to time in like some weird like sacrifice like Aristocrat style decks. And we're into red. Okay, let's skip over the first few things here. Burning Anger. I actually just played a game, like a video with Storm Herald combo. This is the last piece for that deck. You play Burning Anger with Classification. Storm Herald brings them both back attached to it. The classification gives the creature +20/+20 and tries to tap it, but in response to the trigger, you activate its ability with Burning Anger because the creature has haste by default. You tap and deal 23 damage to your opponent, which is very cool. A little inconsistent, but has seen play historically in Pioneer and done pretty well. Draconic Roar, cool. Firecraft, like Black Amogus reprint. Rabble Master we actually just had as part of Jumpstart Horizon, one of the Jumpstart sets, I think, with maybe Foundations. Kozilek's Return, huge. I talked about Eldrazi again. Unfortunately, it's really weird that we have this and we don't have Sanctum moving in, but it is what it is. Very powerful card. 2 damage each creature, but then when you cast an Eldrazi spell with mana value 7 or greater, exile from your graveyard to deal 5 damage each creature is awesome. Legion Loyalist fits into some Goblin stuff. I like that a lot, and does see some play every now and again. Mizium Mortars, I guess these are like, some of these mythics are mythic for the limited environment, which is actually, I quite like that, because it means that a lot of the constructed stuff stays at rare, is a bit more accessible. Yeah. More Spear reprints, Outpost Siege, like Oath of Challenger I have seen in some lists every now and again. You see it occasionally in some very, it's kind of fall out of favor now because there's so many good options, but was at one point seen playing like enigmatic type stuff. Pierre and Kiran, Perforos, for all players, Cower and Fear, I guess. Reckless Bushwhacker is a really nice one actually. Plays into some of the like Ataka red strategies and some of the Goblin stuff. Radiant Flames again. The really cool thing about Radiant Flames is that because you can control how much damage it's doing, you can often use it in a deck that plays creatures and just be like, oh, I'm just gonna do 1 damage to wipe your opponent's side of the board. Very nice. Very nice. Or 2 damage to do similar if you've got 3 times creatures in play. Anyway, moving on. Smash the Smithereens, cool. There's also Destructive Revelry, which I'm sure we'll get to later on in the set. Storm Breath Dragon, really sweet. Awakening, a Wild Slash. There was a long time where Wild Slash wasn't on Arena anyway, but now we just have better options. Zergo, I did see Zergo in a list earlier. I was like, I wonder if that got put on with some of the like dragon stuff. I was like, oh no, but it is in Pioneer Masters, so here we are. Nice. And that takes us into green. Aspects of the Hydra is a really awesome card in some of these like mono green aggro decks. It's not a very like, it's not a deck that's like consistently putting up loads of results, but it's a kind of deck that crops up every now and again. This alongside Avatar the Resolute, both really important cards for the mono green aggro deck, so they're really solid. In fact, the Audacity's kind of in there as well. Sarah Tower Archer, this along with Glade Cover Scout, which I'm sure we'll get to in a moment. Hexproof creatures for the Hexproof deck, like Celestia Auras and that kind of thing. Really good. Brood Monitor is actually a neat addition. You can do some stuff with this card and Eldrazi Displacer, where you can effectively blink the Brood Monitor infinite times if you've got the Displacer in play, because this makes 3 1/1 Eldrazi Scion tokens that activate the ability. And so if you have something that either triggers off things dying, like Zilport Cut Through, it's like an infinite combo. But doesn't really play tons and tons of much play at all in Pioneer, but like it's like again on the fringe of the format. I mean, with the gods, as someone who plays a lot of Dredge and is a big fan of Insidious Roots, this is a really cool card to see on the platform. There's some other things with that. We keep getting like a couple of new tools. We have like Altanak recently, the Say Your Name stuff, which is really sweet. But Communion on Arena is really nice to have, and again is a card that sees like play occasionally in the format. Experiment 1 talks about mono green aggro already. Kind of leave it there. Garrett Caller of Beasts is very sweet, but doesn't really fit into any of the ramp decks that we have in the format right now. All very Cura orientated Nykthos stuff. Gather the Pack again is another card like Communion of the Gods, which like enables some very specific archetypes in terms of putting stuff into your graveyard. Great to have on the platform. And then Glade Cover Scout is huge. Another deck that just wasn't really. You could try and play it, and obviously you can do Lightball stuff, and Lightball stuff is very good on Arena. But Glade Cover Scout to play like actual true Selesnya hexproof is super awesome. This and Tower Archer give you like, you've got a plethora of hexproof creatures to put enchantments on now, which is really cool. I mean, it's going to lead to some really unattractive magic, but hey, it now exists. Hornet's Nest does see some occasional sideboard play, but hey, it's a cool one to have on here regardless. The Harpooner, actually reprinted it on. I occasionally chuck into sideboards, especially when I've got ways to like tutor for creatures, or I'm like playing a creature deck. It being able to shoot stuff is nice. Mistcutter Hydra I'm trying to remember if this has been. I can't remember if this has had like a strict, not a strict upgrade, but an upgrade in terms of like a better threat to play out Cyborg versus Blue decks. I'm fairly sure because this gets like exiled to like Wandering Emperor and that kind of thing. But hey, was for a long time a really important card. Natural State as a 1-mana interaction for artifacts and enchantments. We have like Pick Your Poison now, but it's still like a relevant card. We see some sideboard play. Nissa Vastwood Seer. This might be my most played legendary creature ever. I have I built a Nissa Vastwood Seer command deck when it came out, but it's not really seeing loads of play in Pioneer. Occasionally, you do see it in some kind of like weird land stuff, and I will certainly play it a little bit. I have a couple of different Pioneer land piles that I quite enjoy playing. Voice of Zendikar. Yep, sweet. Does stuff specifically like hardened scales type decks. But those are a little. Then they keep getting more cards, but they are all kind of in the same cost range, and none of them cost 1 mana really. They're all kind of too expensive and fighting for space, and not good enough to actually put the deck over the top to be competitive. Neither is Disciple. Gain new life for Devotion to Green. Neat. Oath of Nissa, historically a really important card, was banned in Pioneer at one point. Sorry. I mean, sort of a good reason, I guess. But hey, yeah, really important to have on Arena. Velocronous, Portal Marassa, love this card. Get a land back, gain 6 life. Solid. Reverent Hunter is a kind of card that people try and play in like mono green aggro decks, but it's like not consistent enough really, but can obviously spike for a lot of power. Skylasher is another kind of like sideboard card. Reach Pro Blue is really cool. Especially like if Oculus gets powerful. Excuse me. Stuff like that. Sky Reaping, again, like this relies on Devotion to Green, but damage to each creature for flying is good. Carroted is a huge one for things like 5 Collective Visit, which is a really powerful archetype. We also Bring to Light is finally on Arena. Oh, really excited. Unravel is a cool one. This used to be like the super tech answer to answer Perforos back in the day. Not so relevant anymore on either side, but hey, it's a key one. Voyaging Satyr, often like sideboarded in some of these like Lotus Field decks. And then we're into multicolored stuff. I dated a GP without access to me once. That's not helpful. Ashiok's a pretty cool one that like very occasionally crops up. Ashen Rider as an awesome card to cheat into play. Again, occasionally makes its way into some of these kind of like decks like creativity. Assemble Legion, I've seen in some sideboards recently actually. I was like, oh, actually. Some of the like Naya creativity decks like sideboarding into this as an alternate threat. It's expensive, but will eventually kill your opponent. Athros is very, very cool, but doesn't see very much play, unfortunately. Blood Baron, I was like surprised initially when I saw this, and then looking through this, I was like, oh, actually, it cropped up a couple of times. When I went through this, I went through a lot of deck lists of Goldfish. Blood Tide Harvester reprint. The other thing about this is that it's going to be a really, really good set to craft if you're new to Pioneer on Arena. If you've not played before, as opposed to Timeless, where the cards are everywhere and all a mess. And in theory, you can like craft like Modern Horizons boosters. But this is just going to be a great set to craft if you want to play Pioneer on Arena. With the exception of it doesn't have a relevant set of lands. That is important. A lot of the time you'll find that your rare wildcards are like just you just have to pay the land tax if you want to play multicolored decks. But hey, does have so many pieces. Bring to Light does some. One of my favorite cards in Pioneer. Does everything. Obviously fits into like the 5-color Niv deck. That's its like most prominent home now, but occasionally sees playing other stuff. In older formats, kind of like Tutor for Escape Shift. We don't have Valakut right now in like Timeless or Historic, but hey, I don't know if they'll ever put it on the platform, but hey. Also missed over Boros Reckoner, which is another kind of like sweet card. Again, very, very fringe playable, but not like a stalwart of the format by any means. Cartel Aristocrat. Aristocrat effects are few and far between nowadays. This is a very solid one that is a quote-unquote free sacrifice effect for 2 mana, which is very, very rare, and so the Aristocrat star decks will like this a lot. On a similar note, Catacomb Sifter sees play in some variations of like sacrifice, and also specifically, I guess, it sees play in some Bolas' Citadel builds. I've played a decent amount in paper. Being able to get the acceleration, but also the like scrying when things are dying, lets you kind of go through your deck, scry with Citadel to get the right cards on top, while making mana, while getting you value. Chromantical basically only sees play in the Soulflare deck. That's awesome. Disruptor Reverie is like a great sideboard card if you're playing red and green. It's just naturalize that deals 2 damage to your opponent, which is very, very sweet. Summary Raid, occasional sideboard card. Dragon Lord Ataka, occasionally you see it in like some like, again, these decks that are trying to cheat play. Jamoka, this sees a ton of play in Lotus Field specifically. Again, can't be countered, which like kind of hoses, like the deck struggles versus control decks. This hoses control decks. Occasionally crops up in other places. Ojutai, Slumguard, these are sweet. Dreadbore is like another kind of like occasional one. This being printed at common actually is interesting. I don't know if like the pauper type formats only really get paid with like midweek Magic stuff, but occasionally I see some like community round tournaments with them, and kind of sweet there. Epic Experiment is cool, but not really doing anything. Fleece Mainline, I did actually was again going through deck lists, saw some cat stuff that I was like, ooh, that's sweet. There's cat. Fleece Mainline's on Arena, and I was like, oh yeah, it's in Pioneer Masters, which is really sweet. Garrick Apex Predator, too expensive to really see play in Pioneer, but hey, is a sweet one. Rampager, we're kind of past the days of Gorkai Rampager, but is a cool card to have around. Growing Ranks, downgrade to uncommon. Okay, fair. Not really doing anything though. Go through recipes. Oh, we did get Karanos. This used to be like a card that's all playing modern in like Splinter Twin as like a sideboard threat that's just really hard to deal with. But doesn't really see a ton of play in Pioneer. It's a really cool one to have around. Just like reveal the curse cards you draw each of your turns. When you reveal a land card this way, draw a card. When you reveal a non-land card, bolt something. And actually, it was also the result of a lot of judge calls. Because if they didn't reveal the first card, you'd get like a anyway. Let's say Who Explores. Cards are sweet. Lotless Troll, I'll definitely be playing a bit with this, do some dredge stuff. Obviously a free discard outlet for creatures to your graveyard is very, very cool. But doesn't see, again, not a ton of Pioneer play. Same with some of the others here. Same with Night Veil Spectre, as much as I like Devotion stuff, it's just not quite up to snuff. Narset as well. Notion Thief, again, I mentioned there's like a blue-black wheels deck, and Notion Thief does fit into that. Is really, really cool. And occasionally, I mean, there's like blue-black mid-range stuff going on with like Kaito and some other cards. That's quite nice, and like this could be a reasonable sideboard card there too. Your opponent is, in Pioneer at least, basically never expecting it. And then carrying on down here, I love a Rakdos Return, but it is too expensive unfortunately for this format. Rurik Thar is another card that's like some variations of ramp decks that want to splash, or alternatively decks that are trying to cheat things to play. Rurik Thar shuts some decks out of the game. Whenever a player casts a non-creature spell, Rurik Thar deals 6 damage to that player. That does include you, bear that in mind, but hey. Yeah, one to bear with. Slesnia Charm, one half of my favorite on-camera magic moment, the other half being Golgari Charm. You can look that up. Is a really, really cool clip. Siren Sanity, again, kind of similar to Rurik Thar, one of these like big threats from, actually, these are both from Dragon's Maze, but hey. Wait, Rurik Thar from Dragon's Maze? Or that might not be true. I can't recall actually. Steam Augury, Storm Chaser Mage. Not powerful enough for Pioneer really, but hey, very occasionally you see something. And Tumble. I love unexpected results, but it's not good. Unflinching Courage, sure. Wear Tear, solid cyber card, but I believe it's already. No, it's not already on Arena, right? I don't believe so. This is the first printing onto there, and it's like a very solid cyber card if you're playing red and white. Which there are variations for at the moment, but like a lot of the red white decks now are playing like aggro decks or burn. So hey, so like would you play this over something like Smash Smithereens? Depends what you're looking for. Enchantment removal is very highly rated right now anyway. Leyline bindings, all that stuff. Temporary lockdown. Xenagos God of Revels. We saw this reprinted earlier this year. Mostly combos with the Worldspine Worm for the like Is It Creativity deck. Xenagos the Reveler does very occasionally see play in the format. But again, kind of another niche one. On to Colorless. Avoid Winnower. Slanavegan, Bane of Balagad. Yeah. Nothing super exciting here. I have seen Void Winnower. This card's very annoying to play against. The Void Winnower. But I have seen it occasionally crop up. And then Artifacts. Chain Veil here. Again, this is like a brawl card really. But nothing else super exciting. Getting Colossus just keeps getting reprinted. And then lands. As I mentioned, no Sanctum of Ugin. We do have Haven the Spirit Dragon, which is cool, but does not really see any play in the format. It baffles me that we don't have Sanctum, honestly. But hey, the cycle of like man lands here You've got Hissing Quagmire, Lumbering Falls. These don't see tons of play anymore. But hey, another Maze's End reprint. Neat. We have Spawning Bed and not Science. I need to stop talking. It makes me upset. And the most, well, another one of the most important cards on the platform, Urborg. You now no longer have to change a card every time you try and import a black deck. And importantly for things that I like, it enables you to do silly things with Escape Shift. And some other kind of like weird Swamps Matter effects. But hey, that's the set. We talked about some of the decks, like things like Jeskai Tendency. There's a bunch of decks that are like going to be brand new to Arena that have been like 1.5, and then obviously like infinite tier 2 stuff. Gonna have my hands full in terms of content for the next few months, I think. But yeah, let me know what you think. Let me know if you think they missed anything important, or there's any like niche card that you think we missed out. And yeah, super excited for the set to drop. We'll be making a bunch of videos. So hey, if you enjoyed, please do like, subscribe, all that stuff. Algorithm stuff helps me out a ton. Share the video around, all that. And yeah, thanks for watching. Peace out.